Jaya. Okay, you can do it that way. Jaya, 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 Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava, Kunja Bihari. Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhanari. Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhanari. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Very good. Jai Mr. Pad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotter to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parajikacharya Ashtotter to the Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnavin ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay. Just give me a second here. Seems to be 39 we're on now? Oh, 38. 38? Okay. Alrighty. On this 29th day of June, 2026 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in Chapter 3 entitled Karma Yoga. Text 38, middle of page 174. Dume na vriyate vahnir yatha darsho malena cha Yatolbe navrito garbhas tata tenedam avritam. All right, just one note on this word by word in the translation. Prabhupada used the word embryo, but he's really talking about a fetus here, which is more developed and like that. Okay. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Ishtadev. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Tapas. Dume navriyate vanir malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Go ahead, Jeff. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Roy. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Luis, belt it out. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Maki, you want to try? You don't have to. Okay. I'm in Europe. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Dume navriyate vanir yatadarsho malenacha yatolbe navrito garbhas tatatene damavritam. Clarissa? Okay, no problem. Tapas? Two. Who's that? Is Prema there? Chaitanya Lila? No, Chaitanya Lila. That's his name now. Okay, Prem Gopal.
Hare Krishna.
Go ahead.
Dume navriyate vanir
Dume navriyate vanir
Yata darsho malena cha.
Yata darsho malena cha.
Yato benarvrito garbhas.
Yato benavrito garbhas.
Tata tene dam avritam.
Tatate nedam abritam. Chaitanya Leela.
Dume navriyate vanir.
Tumbe navriyate vanir.
Yata darsho malena cha.
Yata darsho malena cha.
Yato ben avrito garbhas.
Yato benavrito garbhas.
Tata tenedam avritam.
Tatate nedam abritam. Okay, word by words. Dhumena, by smoke. Avriyate is covered. Vahnihi, fire. Yata, just as. Ardarshaha, mirror. Malena, by dust. Cha, also. I say that a mirror. Make it a mirror. Malena, by dust. Cha, also. Yata, just as. Ubena, by the womb. Avritaha, is covered. Garbaha, a fetus. Tata, so. Tena, by that lust. Idam, this avitam, is covered. Translation. As fire is covered by smoke, as a mirror is covered by dust, or as the fetus is covered by the womb, the living entity is similarly covered by different degrees of this lust. Purport. There are 3 degrees of covering of the living entity by which his pure consciousness is obscured. This covering is but lust under different manifestations, like smoke in the fire, dust on the mirror, and the womb about the fetus. When lust is compared to smoke, it is understood that the fire of the living spark can be a little perceived. In other words, when the living entity exhibits his Krishna consciousness slightly, he may be likened to the fire covered by smoke. Although fire is necessary where there is smoke, there is no overt manifestation of fire in the early stage. This stage is like the beginning of Krishna consciousness. The dust on the mirror refers to a cleansing process of the mirror of the mind by so many spiritual methods. The best process is to chant the holy names of the Lord. The fetus covered by the womb is an analogy illustrating a helpless position, for the child in the womb is so helpless that he cannot even move. This stage of living condition can be compared to that of the trees. The trees are also living entities, but they have been put in such a condition of life by such a great exhibition of lust that they are almost void of all consciousness. The covered mirror is compared to the birds and beasts, and the smoke-covered fire is compared to the human being. In the form of a human being, the living entity may revive a little Krishna consciousness, and if he makes further development, the fire of spiritual life can be kindled in the human form of life. By careful handling of the smoke and the fire can be made to blaze. Therefore, the human form of life is a chance for the living entity to escape the entanglement of material existence. In the human form of life, one can conquer the enemy, lust, by cultivation of Krishna consciousness under able guidance. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and to all members of Sri Parampara, the disciplic succession. Okay, I'm just looking. All right. So, we are at this last section of the 3rd chapter, which starts with Arjun's question in text 36. Arjun said, O descendant of Vrishni, by what is one impelled to sinful acts, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, it is lust only, Arjun, which is born of contact with the material mode of passion and later transformed into wrath, and which is the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. And then in the present verse, there's various degrees of this lust covering the living entity. And Prabhupada gives a nice explanation in the purport. Now, what does the second one recall? Yata darsha malenacha, that as a mirror is covered by dust. Any ideas? Does that remind you of a verse? How about Shikshastika, number 1? Chaito Darpana Marjanam. That's what it means. It means that this process of chanting Hare Krishna, especially in congregation, polishes the mirror of the mind. The mind is compared to a mirror here, right? Dume navrite vanir yata adarsho, mirror, malena cha. So, Prabhupada mentions that the best means of cleansing or purifying the soul of this covering of lust, whether it's very thick or not so thick, is the chanting of the holy name, especially in this age. It's the only practical means. We have two verses to prove that. One, Lord Chaitanya, when he met Prakashananda Saraswati and his thousands of disciples in Benares. This is a pastime of the Lord. Krishna was initiated by, externally anyway, a Mayavadi, because there was no other way of becoming a sannyasi. The sannyasis at that time were all Mayavadis. And devotees who would go for extreme renunciation, they would become what's called Babajis. They wouldn't wear the orange, they wear white and with a loincloth, and they'd go to Vrindavan. And they'd just chant all day and wander around Vrindavan, you know. That's mostly what was happening. But Lord Chaitanya, he wanted to preach, he wanted to travel and give Krishna consciousness all over India. So he took on the role of sannyasi by taking initiation from Keshava Bharati, who was externally anyway a Mayavadi. So, because that's how he could get sannyas. So then Lord Chaitanya, he was traveling around India and he went to Benares and he was dancing and chanting. And he had some devotees with him dancing and chanting out in the streets of Benares, which is kind of a stronghold of the Mayavadis. Even to this day, there's many of them there. Mayavadis meaning impersonalists who study the Vedanta Sutta all the time and are hoping to merge into the Brahman and lose their personality entirely. That's what their goal is. But that's not real liberation. It's not. There's a beautiful verse in the 10th canto, which will come along shortly. Those who are with us in the morning. We're just entering the first chapter of the 10th canto. And Krishna is about to appear. He's about to take birth, you know, from Devaki. And while he's getting ready to take birth, the demigods come. And they, in a secret place, they're hidden, they can't be. And they're chanting these beautiful prayers to Krishna. And one of them Prabhupada would quote all the time, and it deals exactly with this. He's praising the devotees. They're praising the devotees, and they say, yea and yea. But there are others besides the devotees. Yea, yea, anabindaksha vimuktamaninas tvayasta bhavad avishuddha buddhaya aruha kuchena parang padang tata patantyadho anadvidayushmarangriya. Very instructive. Besides the devotees, there are others who fancy them, who think that they're liberated. Yea, vimuktamaninas. Mukti is liberation from birth and death. It doesn't necessarily involve bhakti, although that includes mukti. But the word maninas means in their mind, they're thinking that they're liberated, but they're not really liberated. So, but what happens to them? But they're against service to you because their consciousness, their intelligence is not purified sufficiently. And so even though they may practice severe austerity, you know, I mean, we have practiced austerities, but nothing like that. It's said that one of the examples of the extreme austerity the yogis would do, which they're also looking for mukti, is if it's hot out, just like in a good part of the world, it's really hot. This is the hottest time in India, as far as I know. Right? Yeah, May and June. So bring your automatic air conditioner. I mean, anyway. So if it's hot, all right, let's go out and find a desert, you know, and we'll build some fires around and we'll sit in the midst of fires in the desert in the hot sun and meditate. That way we'll get more credit for the austerity. It'll be more extreme, you see. And it's freezing cold, all right, let's go bathe in the Ganges. But not here in Mayapur, that's in the south, it's too warm. We'll go up to where it starts. The Ganges begins up in the Himalayas, you know, it's really cold. We'll dive in there, you know, it's wintertime, yeah, we'll get some. So that extreme, I mean, if you join the temple, you know, you have to go through some austerities, but nothing like that, you know. But anyway, But the key phrase is that vimukta maninas, they think that they're liberated. But then he says, but even though through severe austerity, some of them, not all, may rise up to the platform of Brahman, means that they, through austerity, they become detached from the body, and they're more or less merged into the white light of the Supreme, you see. But Aruha means they rise, Arura Kritrena. Kritrena is kind of a onomatopoeia. Who knows what an onomatopoeia is? You know it. A word that means what it sounds like. Splash is an English onomatopoeia. You know, bam is another. I mean, that's probably in the dictionary. So Kritrena, doesn't it give you a sense of difficult austerity? You know, Kritrena, let me rise up, Kritrena. It's not like Amala Kamala Dutikandana, but you know that would be that's bhakti. So anyway, by severe austerities, they may become temporarily detached from the body, you know, and rise up, and they're merged. And I always compare this. Some of you have been in these classes; you've heard this before. I've never been in one, but I read about them. You probably know a sensory deprivation chamber, right? Have you ever been in one of those? Really? Huh? Very popular, yeah. And it's like the temperature is regulated exactly to be very comfortable. Do they put some salt in the water so you can float nicely in there?
I want to hear a story.
Well, I don't want to hear the whole story. All right, we'll tell me later. I'll incorporate your story. So anyway, the idea is it's a very nice environment in there. You know, there's no, I mean, they don't pump any music or anything. It's just quiet, right? Yeah. So you're floating in there, perfect temperature, you know, and what more do you want, you know? But the problem is that, oh my God, what time is it? I got to go to work, you know? Let me out of here. In other words, you're still entangled with the material world. So similarly, these impersonalists who get up there, you know, because they do become detached from the body, from all that austerity, then they can't stay there. So it says, Adu akuchena param padantata. Because their intelligence is not pure enough. They're not really detached. And so they fall down again. And Prabhupada would give the examples of, you know, because there was some contemporaries who were well known. Vivekananda, a little before Prabhupada's time, you know, he gave the famous speech in Chicago at the end of the 19th century, I think 1896 or something. But then his followers came, you know, then I encountered some, this is the famous Ramakrishna mission. In the Gita, he mentions the mission, not by name. He says there's a mission with a capital M, you know, and he criticized him for being impersonalist. So the point is that they weren't satisfied with their, and so they, you know, came down and they started making hospitals and things like that, which is, you know, it's good charity work, but it's not transcendental. It's not, you know, for yogis. So here this calls to mind Yatadarsha Malenacha. So Lord Chaitanya, he when he met his Prakashananda Saraswati and his thousands of followers in Benares, he pretended, he told them that, so they asked him, why are you dancing around in the street like a sentimentalist? You know, why don't you come and study the Vedanta Sutra with us? You know. So he said, which wasn't, it's a fib, but he said this, that his spiritual master, Ishwara Puri, he took a spiritual master, told him that he's not qualified to study the Vedanta Sutra, that you have to just follow this verse in the Brihadaranyaka Purana. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Heva Kevalam, Kalo, Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gataranyata. Which means, if you want to achieve the supreme goal of life in this age when dissension and chaos abound, there is no other way, there is no other way, there is no other way that can ever be found. But to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name, but to chant Krishna's name with a stout-hearted vow, and to pray, oh Lord Krishna, O friend of the poor, let my head ever run to your lotus feet bow. I added that last part just because I needed a line, you know. It's not in the Sanskrit. So this is a classic verse. In fact, we used to sing it on Harinama, believe it or not. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Heva Kevalam, Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatiranyata. Like that. Something like that. Imagine like 20 devotees singing that in the middle of Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. We used to go, there was a big church there. And I don't know if they let us, I mean, we would get on the steps and we'd chant half the day, you know. I don't know if they knew we were out there. But anyway, So that was, we wouldn't chant it for half an hour or something. We all chant it together once or twice. There we go on to chanting Hare Krishna. So that's a very important verse. And there's another one that Prabhupada would quote. This is in the Vedanta Sutras, not the Vedanta Sutras. It's in the Kali Santarana Upanishad. Now, Kali Santarana means you read this Upanishad and follow its instructions, and you'll be delivered from Kali. Kali Santarana means to be delivered from the grips of Kali. So it's very interesting. There's two verses. The first verse is, I think you know this first verse already. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If you study it, you see it's got the same beat, ultimately, as one of these Bhagavad Gita verses, 32 syllables. So that's the first. Then the second verse says, Iti Shodashakam Nam Kali Kalmasha Nashanam Natak Padataropaya Sarva Vedeshu Drishyate. These 16 names, Hare Krishna mantra, are the best means, the most effective means for counteracting the ills of the Kali Yuga. Kali Kalmasha means the impurities and the difficulties. Kali Nashanam means to destroy. Iti Shodashakam Nam, these 16 names, Kali Kalmasha Nashanam, Natak Padataropaya. You may search throughout the Vedas, you will never find a better means than chanting these 16 names. So this is kind of the, foundation, Shastric foundation of the Sankirtan movement, because this whole thing is based on the chanting. So, and very nicely here, Yata Darshamalenacha, as Lord Chaitanya, who's Krishna himself, says, the first installment is polishing the mirror of the heart, which is exactly what he said, Yata Darshamalenacha. Because if the heart is covered by this mala, which is impurity of lust, then tatatena, the condition of the soul, avita means covered. That is, consciousness is covered by different degrees of this lust. And he compares it to the smoke covering the fire, the dust covering the mirror, or the uterus covering the fetus. So that's what we're faced with here. All right, I'm going to go on because he goes on with this idea of avritam. Avritam means covered, and that's where the next verse begins. And then he's going to get to this critical, he's explaining now the answer to Arjun's question. What is it one impelled to sinful acts, even unwilling? And he says it's lust, which is born of the contact with material modes of passion and later transformed to wrath, the all-devouring sinful enemy of this world. So now he's explaining how that lust covers to various degrees. Okay, text 39. Avritam gyanam etena Gyanino nityavairina Kama rupena konteya Duspurena analenacha. Thus, the wise living entity's pure consciousness becomes covered by his eternal enemy in the form of lust, which is never satisfied and which burns like fire. Purport. It is said in the Manusmriti that lust cannot be satisfied by any amount of sense enjoyment, just as fire is never extinguished by a constant supply of fuel. In the material world, the center of all activities is sex, and thus this material world is called Maitunya Agara, or the shackles of sex life. In the ordinary prison house, criminals are kept within bars. Similarly, the criminals who are disobedient to the laws of the Lord are shackled by sex life. Advancement of material civilization on the basis of sense gratification means increasing the duration of the material existence of a living entity. Therefore, this lust is the symbol of the ignorance by which the living entity is kept within the material world. While one enjoys sense gratification, it may be that there is some feeling of happiness, but actually that so-called feeling of happiness is the ultimate enemy of the sense enjoyer. Pretty heavy statement there. That's why, and those who have been attending these classes for some time, I always quote 5th chapter, text 22, which we can turn to now. Exactly in this theme, it keeps coming up. 522, page 249. Yehi sangsparjaja bhoga dukkayonaya evate adyantabanta konteya neteshu ramate buddha. Now this translation has been revised. An intelligent person, Yeah, there it is in your book, the new translation. An intelligent person does not take part in pleasures which are due to contact with the material senses. In other words, bringing the senses in contact with the objects of the senses, otherwise known as sense gratification. An intelligent person does not take part in pleasures which are due to contact with the material senses. O son of Kunti, such pleasures are the sources of misery and have a beginning and an end, and so the wise man does not delight in them. So the idea is that it's not that there's no pleasure there. Obviously there is, but it's temporary. But we don't want temporary pleasure. We want eternal pleasure, right? But here we're bound by this, all varieties of lust, beginning with sex, and it has a beginning and an end. And the problem is, the science is that it once engaged in it, then you want to do it again and again and again and again, and ultimately the body breaks down, you die, and that desire impels you into a new body to enjoy that way. And if you've been very sinful about it, you'll probably lose the human form of body. You can get a dog's body and have, unlimited sex. So it's self-defeating. The pleasure is fleeting, but the complications and the implications of it for a living entity can go on for millions of years, because it's that basic desire. But it's also, there's the pleasures of the tongue. All the senses have their pleasures. Hearing, I mean, when we want to hear some nice bhajans and hear Hare Krishna song, right? And if you hear some Kami music, like when I go do my laundry, one of the austerities is they think, we'll make it nice, and they play this horrible music, with TV. In other words, there's a band going on there. So I bring my noise canceling headphones. I'm playing nice bhajan or Prabhupada lecture there, So because just as pure sound vibration, vibrated by the realized soul, the Hare Krishna, is so purifying and so essential. Similarly, material sound vibration is very contaminating, and because not only is attractive music or something, but the words that you hear, if they're just about material things, then that will fill your mind with certain images and things, and you stay entangled. So all the senses, this is the science of bhakti, is that sarvopari vinimuktam, I'm sorry. Iha yasya hare dase karma namana sagera. Nikalashvapjavastastu jivan mukta sa uchite. This is the definition of someone who's really liberated. So iha, now you have to watch out for the diacritics, because the word iha means here, but the word iha with long I and long A means your activities. Iha yasya hare dase. If someone all of whose activities are Hare Dase, are somehow related to service to Krishna, to Hari. What kind of activities? Karmana manasa gira. Karmana means your active senses. Manasa, your mind. Gira, your words. Karmana manasa gira. Nikalashu, all of them. Avastasu jivan mukta sa uchite. That all of whose the activities of all, there's 10 senses. It's taught in third grade, second grade, we have 5 senses, right? They're all in the head. Like the ear, you can see, the vision, the hearing, the smelling, and the touch, and the tasting. They're all right there. So we have those are the knowledge, called the Gyanendriyas, knowledge acquiring senses. But you also have active senses. This is your hands, very important, your legs, right? And evacuating organs, right? Reproductive organs. What's the other one? Hands, feet, legs, feet. Huh? Well, no, those are knowledge acquiring. These are the active senses. Yeah, the voice is obviously one. Well, the hands, but they count as 1. The feet count as 1, that's 3. Yeah, and excreting and reproducing, that's 5. So you have 10 senses, 5 knowledge acquiring and 5 active senses. So all of them, the activities of all of them, if you're going to use all of them, any of them, then they have to be related to Krishna. They connect you to Krishna. Because it's the senses, the mind acting through the senses that cover or make us forget Krishna and fill us with the desire to enjoy separate from Krishna. But that's the source of our entanglement here. That's why we're here. So these senses, just like in a few minutes, we'll see the beauty of the deities. So the eyes, that's the proper use of the eyes. Or all these wonderful paintings. Prabhupada was so ecstatic when he found that there were some artists who joined. Radharani was the first artist. What a blessing she had. Where's she going to paint? There's two rooms, basically. You got the big room. I don't know if you've ever seen pictures or visited the 26 Second Avenue. But there's one room where everyone gathered, Prabhupada would come in. And then he had his own apartment upstairs in the back, Well, you can't just hang out, down with all the guys down there and with all the traffic. So Prabhupada would give her the outer room and she would paint there, and Prabhupada's in the back room, writing. You can imagine how fortunate she was. And she's a great artist. So that creates an image. Like I'm seeing this painting here, and there's Sita Ram, So if I know the Ramayana, then all the pastimes can flood in. Oh yeah, they're in the forest. That's Ravan. He's going to steal her. So all the things get you reminded. Prabhupada would call them windows to the spiritual world. So this is how we, and I'm going to keep using this word because it's a perfect word. Sublimate the desires, purify especially the ears. That's the first one. Is how to hear pure sound vibration, the chanting of the mantra by the spiritual master. That's why I encourage you all to take advantage of the recordings of Prabhupada, chanting bhajan, so many songs, and Hare Krishna. I mean, the movement took a great leap forward with that first record. I mean, this is just Krishna's arrangement, that Prabhupada was Allen Ginsberg had visited India. Somehow he got the Hare Krishna mantra, and he would sing it. He didn't really know what he was doing, but he liked to sing it. And he settled in nearby Prabhupada in 26 Second Avenue, Prabhupada in 26th Avenue, and all the hippies and everyone were around in Lower East Side, so he lived there. So when he heard that, a guru was singing Hare Krishna, he came by, and they had a wonderful relationship. And he was world famous by that time, So he gave Prabhupada a big boost. And Prabhupada appeared in the newspaper. He was in the New York Times, which Prabhupada said was the most important newspaper in the world. And they printed an article about him singing in Tompkins Square Park, like that. So the sound. So what did Prabhupada do? He said, invited them all to come, and then let's meditate. No, you're not going to sit silently. Well, I'll play the bongo, and you clap your hands. I don't know, there were no cartels around, whatever they did. And so he sang, and they would repeat. And in this way, they become purified. Hearing him chant, very purifying, and then repeating like that. So that's what's, from the Bhagavad Gita, it doesn't mention it exactly here. But, of Jagya, when the Jagya comes up, you'll find in this purport, especially in this paragraph. Because, Yagya, I think it's in the next chapter. Yagyartart kamanon yatra lokayam kamabandhana, maybe in this chapter. But all activities must be done as a sacrifice for Vishnu. And then even another meaning of the word yagya is Vishnu, believe it or not. So, but what does Lord Chaitanya say, that first verse, Sankirtan yagya, that the sacrifice of Sankirtan. Now many of you were at that Saturday night, at that little gathering we had down by the bay there. And Gauranga Maharaj, he had a kirtan, an incredible melody he had picked out, It was very, very wonderful. And the devotees were getting, and we had our drummers, Nilesh was there, and Aniket was there, And it was just such a wonderful meditation and nice. But that's what the means is in this age. Otherwise, we'll get to chapter 6. Okay, is everybody ready to sit in a secluded place? Got to go to a secluded place, completely alone. Okay, pure place. Where am I going to find that? Anyway, you go to the studio. You meditate for 15 minutes or something like that. Have to stand up. And look. I can never get this. Look at the place between the eyebrows. I don't know. I could never do that for 3 minutes. What to speak of 10,000 years. Anyway, who's going to be able to do that? It doesn't work. You can fake it. I mean, I know I was in studios, but you're not able to really make that a way of life. It's not possible. But you can make chanting a way of life. You can chanting on the street. You can talk to Dvijamani. There was one devotee, I forget his name, Harinamananda or something. He was just known for going out and being, heavenly kirtans in the streets of Moscow, So, because it really nourishes the soul, it really gives you a transcendental pleasure. If you surrender to it, you really become absorbed in the chanting and you're leading a pure life. And it sublimates that sense of wanting to, impulse for sense gratification. Your senses are being gratified in a transcendental way, and you're all being purified. Your ears, your eyes, everything's being purified. And then oh no, I don't want that anymore. So that's Yehi Sansparja. Just to return to the 522. So he said the wise don't take part in sense gratification, knowing well that it's the source of all misery. Well, how is it the source of all misery? Well, because it keeps you bound up to a material body, right? You're just an ordinary sense gratifier like 99.999% of the people out there. And then at the end of life, what happens? Your vehicle for the gratification is now just giving you pain. So finally, you leave the body. But you don't leave the subtle body. Your mind goes with you. All of those remembrances of all those wonderful pleasures I enjoyed, all of that. But unfortunately, you also probably committed a bunch of sins along the way, and those also count, And so I'm sorry, sir or madam, you're not going to get in a human body next time. You can, have the body of a dog, and you can still enjoy your tongue and listen to the words of the master or whatever. Right, and if you're really horrific, you become a tree. I see trees, on my walk. I learn a lot on the walk. And they're standing there. Sometimes I remember I walked one time, and each time I passed one, I would touch the tree and chant Hare Krishna. So maybe there'll be a little blessing with the tree. I don't know. But it's reminding. You think, these poor trees. They can't move. They can't do anything. With this too hot, too cold. So anyway. That's what's going on here. So let's do one or two more. 40? Are we on 40? Yeah. Okay. Okay. Give me.
So the sentence right here, advancement of material civilization at the bottom of 175. It seems kind of interesting because I would think that advance on the basis means increasing the duration of material existence. So are they saying essentially like modern medical technology prolonging life?
No. What do you mean by increasing the duration of material? It means that it's a trap. It looks like advancement, but you're just prolonging. I think increasing the duration means prolonging the duration of suffering in material existence. That's what he's talking about here. In other words, it looks like, we're so advanced, we got all this technology, and now we have these data centers. They're so wonderful. Never mind that, people are here to hum all day now. They have their nice little home they bought, and they can't live there anymore. So, and what happens when the AI is now controlling our military, giving advice to our military? Well, according to our algorithm, it's time to throw the bombs. And so it's just a big entanglement. All this means increasing the duration of material existence means that it prolongs the devotee's entanglement in material existence. That's what it means by that. Even though it seems to be very advanced, because of material civilization, it just keeps the living entity trapped in the illusion of being able to enjoy more money and all these different things. It's not really advancement.
So when they say like increasing duration, they're kind of like meaning more lifetimes trapped in material.
Yeah, it means prolonging. In other words, prolonging means it's something you'd like to end, but it's too long. It's prolonging. You're prolonging my suffering. That's what you always have to recall. English is probably a second language, so there's certain things that you have to kind of understand is idiom. All right, should we do 40? Okay. Indriyani mano buddhi asyadhisthani, asyadhisthana muchyate etarvamohayatyesha jnanamavritta dehinam The senses, the mind, and the intelligence are the sitting places of this lust. Through them, lust covers the real knowledge of the living entity and bewilders him. Notice the word avritam. It comes up again and again. Avritam ganametena. Dume navriyate vane. This covering. Purport. The enemy has captured different strategic positions in the body of the conditioned soul, and therefore Lord Krishna is giving hints of those places so that one who wants to conquer the enemy may know where he can be found. Mind is the center of all the activities of the senses, and thus when we hear about sense objects, the mind generally becomes a reservoir of all ideas of sense gratification, and as a result, the mind and the senses become the repositories of this lust. Next, the intelligence department becomes the capital of such lustful propensities. Intelligence is the immediate next-door neighbor of the spirit soul. Lusty intelligence influences the spirit soul to acquire the false ego and identify itself with matter, and thus with the mind and senses. The spirit soul becomes addicted to enjoying the material senses and mistakes this as true happiness. This false identification of the spirit soul is very nicely explained in the Srimad Bhagavatam 10.84.13. Now this is a famous verse now. Yasyatma buddhi kunape tvidatuke swadika latradi shobhoma ijyadhi yattirtha buddhi salile nakar hichid janesha biggesha saheva gokaraha. A human being who identifies this body made of three elements, that's mucus, bile, and air. That's the classic Ayurveda thing, right? Three elements. Three elements with his self, who considers the byproducts of the body, namely his children and so forth, to be his kinsmen, who considers the land of birth worshipable, and who goes to a place of pilgrimage simply to take a bath rather than meet men of transcendental knowledge there, is to be considered like an ass or a cow. Or sometimes I thought, well, why are we putting the cow down? Another meaning is the donkey who carries the fodder for the cow. You know what I mean? Anyway, either way, it's not very nice. So this is an often quoted verse, Yasyatma buddhi kunapetu dhatake. And you see, the problem is that it's like an infection. We turn away from Krishna. It's described in this very wonderful verse in the 11th canto. The source of all fear, because inevitably, if you're in the bodily concept of life, there's that anxiety. That's why Vaikuntha means a place with no anxiety. You're not at all in the bodily concept of life, or your body is purely spiritual. But in the material life, there's always that danger, you know, that to the body and so forth. So there's fear is just below the surface. So bhayam dvitiya abhinaveshitaksyad. Bhayam occurs when the living entity, there's no fear in the Vaikuntha, free of anxieties. That means free of fear. But when you turn away from Krishna, that's what this verse says. You turn your face away from Krishna and you become absorbed in the material energy, the duality, the world of good and bad, heat and cold, pleasure and pain. That's the dvitiya anabheshitaksya. Isha adapetaza, turning away from the Isha, the Lord. Viparyo smriti, asmriti, you forget. You forget your relation with Krishna, and your attitude becomes reversed. Instead of being the servant, the eternal servant of the Lord, you try to be the master of the material energy. Asmati. I forget the rest of the verse goes. But this is the origin of it. When we're turning away, it's like we're turning our back. The whole idea of Krishna consciousness is to turn back again toward Krishna, beginning with hearing his name, but then also all the other senses, connect them to the Lord, and purify our consciousness so that we experience the pleasure of what it's like to serve Krishna, to be connected to Krishna, to think of Krishna. And that pleasure eventually completely diminishes and makes insignificant the desire for sense gratification, to the degree that it's rejected. It's not even tempting you anymore. So it's like the Yamunacharya. He was a king for a while, and he had a harem and whatever. And so he says, ever since I've been enjoying moment to moment the pleasure of serving the lotus feet of Nanda, the beloved son of Nanda, Krishna, then whenever the remembrance of my activities as the king, when the ladies comes up, I turn my mouth in disgust and Prabhupada charmingly says, I spite upon it. You know, it's a second language. He spits at it, you know. So that pleasure of moment to moment serving Krishna, being conscious of Krishna, completely obliterates the desire for sense gratification, which is good. That means that we're on our way back to Godhead. Because any little desire can bring you back. Another birth. You want another term? I don't want to go around again. I've been 78 years in this one body. That's enough, thank you. Okay. All right, we're getting near the end of this chapter. All right, I'll end with a few choice poems. So this is one we should all know. Every body dies. Every body dies. Now, I learned something very interesting. The word E-V-R-E-Y-B-O-D-Y is not pronounced everybody. It's pronounced everybody. Everybody. Not that you're buddy, but you know, it's just the way it's pronounced. So everybody dies, nobody dies. Wake up, and open your eyes. You're not that body, you're pure spirit soul. Chant the holy name and attain life's goal. Now, what is life's goal? Liberation from the body eternally and going back home, back to Godhead, where we get our spiritual body. We'll have our spiritual body with spiritual eyes, spiritual tongue, spiritual everything, where we can serve eternally the pure spiritual being. And we're completely fulfilled in that. This is the definition of pure love of Krishna. This phrase, I'm not asking you to memorize it, but when I first read it, I couldn't help memorizing. Bhajaniya padama purusha sukhamatra sasukatvam. This is from the Jiva Goswami's, one of his Sandarbhas, which are treatises on devotional service. So bhajaniya comes from the word bhaj, means worshipable. Padama Purusha, the Supreme Person. The worshipable Supreme Person, that's Krishna. Bhajaniya Padama, Sukha Matra. Sukha is his happiness, and Matra only. Only his happiness. Swasukatvam. Find your own happiness solely in the happiness, in giving happiness to the Lord, giving pleasure to the Lord. So that's why chanting Hare Krishna can be so pleasurable, because Krishna loves to hear us chant. He says, oh, you're turning to me again, you're chanting my name. Then he's going to get on my case. Please correct the pronunciation. You know, so that's why, forgive me, I try to correct the pronunciation. Anyway, so where was I? So that was a little phrase I came up with. Then also, this is Lord Chaitanya's instruction to Nityananda and Haridas when he sent them out preaching in Navadvip. Imagine them going door to door. He said, what you should say when they open the door, you see. So he says, Bolo Krishna, Bhajo Krishna, Karo Krishna Shika. Right? Shiksha. Just chant Shri Krishna's name and worship him with all your heart. Follow his instructions, and to others them impart. That last part, welcome. That last part about, and to others them impart, I added on to finish up but that's also part of it. In other words, you chant the holy name and follow Krishna's instructions in Bhagavad Gita. Worship him with all your heart. And then preach this to others, which is really what pleases Krishna the most. He says in the 18th chapter, those who are teaching this to others is the most pleasing service of me. So what's not to like? You know, it's the whole lifestyle of Krishna consciousness. Okay, one more, and then we'll adjourn. Okay, this is an old favorite. This was the favorite verse, the poem that Bhajan Swami liked. Ang haksang hatatakilang sakadadiha deva sakalalokasya tadaniti batamila jaladin jayajitagar mangalang hare nama. This is uttered by Haridas Thakur about the holy name. And his explanation of it, I added to the poem. When the moon is invisible with its nil and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. Now you have to go back 500 years. No electricity, none of this stuff, you know. And as soon as if it's a new moon and the sun sets, it gets very dark and everyone goes to sleep. You know, they get more sleep in those days. So, you're sitting and lying in bed till 12, reading the cell phone. No, they didn't do that. Okay, when the moon is invisible with its nil and the sun is long gone from the sky, then an ocean of darkness envelops this world, and the timorous fear they might die. Timorous, easily frightened. But that thick pall of gloom is at once swept away when the first signs of sunrise appear, and the dawning of day gives assurance to all that in truth there is nothing to fear. In a similar way, when illusion holds sway, and the soul has forgotten his Lord, then the darkness of ignorance covers his heart. Sin and suffering are his reward. But as soon as he says Krishna's name even once, in a manner that doesn't offend, then his ignorance flees like the darkness at dawn, and his sin and his suffering end. So there's nothing to fear, for the sun of the name has appeared with his powers divine. In your heart may that sun, benedictive for all, become fixed and eternally shine. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hari Hari.